What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name's Eric. I am a professional photographer that is based out of San Francisco, California, and I have a love for film. And today we're going to be talking about something that is edgy and crazy for some people, and that is what it's like to shoot film in the year 2022 and what to expect shooting film in this specific era and year, and the overall craziness that's going on with the market. After this video, we'll discuss if it's even still worth shooting film in the year 2022, to be honest. And yeah, some friends still telling me, digital exists. Like, why are you shooting film? And at the end of all those conversations, I always feel like an idiot because I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I shooting film? But anyways, film has become a pretty significant addiction for me over the last 3 years, and it's become a pretty sustainable addiction. I haven't gotten into any trouble with any of this yet. I think that film, as long as you control yourself, it won't control you, if you know what I mean. But for the most part, it has become a relatively interesting place to be in the year 2022. And we're going to discuss a lot of the different things that have gone on in the market before you pick up that film camera. So if you're brand new to film, if you don't know what it's like to shoot film, and you don't know what you're missing, film is a really incredible place to be. It's fun, it's exciting, it has a lot of just really cool things around it. But there are some things that you will need to keep in mind before you actually do buy that film camera and start going out to shoot. So let's discuss some of these things and trends that are currently going on, and then we can start diving into whether or not it's worth shooting film. So first off, right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is film. The one that's hardest to talk about, film. Film, I think the biggest problem with film right now, aside from the pricing, is its limits. It's just how limited it is right now. And I'm talking more specifically towards color film, and that's in 35mm film format. So a lot of us that start in film will be starting off with 35mm film and almost immediately gravitate towards color film, right? Because that's like the tones, the pastels, oh my god, the vibrance, oh my god, the saturation, right? All these things that people really like in film and the overall aesthetic of it. A lot of us will go straight to color, and a lot of us go to like Kodak Color Plus 200 or Kodak Ultramax 400 or Kodak Gold 200, right? These are all like some of the big popular ones that everyone goes to. And as of now, color film is hitting a wall with its overall just availability of it. It's just become very vast. It's hard to find. There are a lot of people on social media, a lot of people that I know that just are having such a hard time getting their hands on any type of 35mm film color. So as of now in 2022, there is a massive shortage of color film. On top of the fact that there's a shortage of this film, it's caused a lot of people to price gouge this and essentially make it almost unaffordable to some. Now, to give you an idea of how expensive film is now versus 3 years ago when I started in 2019, check this out. I was able to buy 5 rolls of Kodak Color Plus 200 for less than $20. I'm talking like $17 for 5 rolls of film, which in today's time is unheard of. You will not find film this cheap in today's world, specifically when it comes down to color. And to find 5 rolls for under $20, it's crazy. Now, today, this film is essentially non-existent in some of the big stores. Like Adorama doesn't have it, B&H doesn't have it, Freestyle doesn't have it, and a majority of the Bay Area stores that are here don't have this film right now because of the shortage it's under. And on eBay, this film right now is trending between $60 and $80, which is insane. Also, check this out. I was able to get this here, which is the Kodak Ultra 400, Ultramax 400 for $17, which is still under 20 bucks, 4 rolls. And now these rolls in today's world are worth around $16 each roll. I'm not even gonna get into slide film. Slide film is $20 a roll. So if you're gonna be shooting slide film, I salute you and good luck with that. I've never shot slide film because it's just incredibly expensive. But is the grass greener in black and white? Absolutely. That's the next one we're gonna talk about. Right now, I even forgot to mention before we even get into black and white, Portra 400 is probably one, if not one of the most popular 35mm film options, and that's also non-existent. Big stores don't have it, local stores don't have it. If you do find it locally, it is going to be essentially a little bit more expensive than it normally is. This Kodak Portra 400 is trending at $130 on eBay right now because it's non-existent in all these other stores. And a lot of the smaller mom and pop shops don't have this film either. So color film is a little grim right now. So if you're coming in hoping to shoot a ton of color film right now, I am gonna have to tell you that may not be happening until we are able to figure out what's going on with all the film shortage and when we're gonna get things back on the shelves. But for the most part, what about black and white? Black and white, I will tell you now, the grass is definitely greener because I've been shooting black and white film for the last 2 years and I've loved every second of it. It's consistent in price, it's cheaper, and it is essentially a lot easier to handle than it is with color. And it's also a lot easier to handle the addiction with black and white because it's also cheaper. And with that said, you're still able to get black and white film for a relatively cheaper price. Some of these films are still ranging between anywhere from $5 to $13 for the more expensive specialty black and white films. But for the most part, when I first came into film, I hated black and white. I always asked myself, who in the world shoots black and white film when there's color? Color has the tones, the vibrance, the life, but I've learned to capture a lot of emotion with black and white, and I've actually fallen in love with black and white, and I wish I would have shot black and white to begin with instead of color. Because when I first came into the world of film photography, I started off in color, developing color, and doing all kinds of things like that. And now that I shoot black and white, and I've pushed rolls of film like 2 or 3 stops over the recommended box speed, it's incredible. I love the moodiness of black and white, the grains, the contrast, the blacks, and the way that it just handles in the world is just great. It just creates a very interesting overall mood in a lot of the things that I shoot, especially when you start getting into like street photography or nature photography. It's really exciting to shoot black and white. So black and white film is something that I would strongly keep in mind if you're just coming into the world of film. Kind of come in with an open mind and kind of say, okay, black color film is kind of out. Let's get into the black and white film and kind of experiment a bit. And I think you'll be able to get a lot of really cool sense out of that, and you might get a good kick out of it. I don't know, maybe you might fall in love with it like I did, because I honestly never saw myself shooting black and white. And that leads us over, and before I even go on to the next topic as well, there's also a lot of great things going on in the world of color. There is a ton of other companies. Silbira, for example, which is a black and white film company, released some color film from, I believe, like their archive or something. They released like an ISO 100 and ISO 160. Cinestill has been in the market now for a while. They're releasing their brand new 400D dynamic film. There's also Cinestill 800T, and then they have their 50D. Even Adox is coming out with a new color film, which is really exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. And there's also other brands like Lomo 400, which is the poor man's Portra 400 that's out there still. And of course, there are some films that are being discontinued, like this one here. This is the Kodak Portra 800. I heard that this film is going to be discontinued, although I still see it pretty much everywhere, so I'm not sure if that's even taking into effect. So now that we've talked about film, which is like one of the biggest elephants in the room, what about finding cameras? Is that world still worth it? What is that like? So that jumps us right into the next subject, which is cameras. Now, when it comes to the world of film cameras, this is where things get a little bit interesting. So the good news about film photography and film cameras is that the value of the cameras tend to really keep that value. It's not going to be like shooting digital, for example. As new technology comes out, DSLRs kind of start losing their value, and before you know it, you're going to be selling the camera that you bought for $800 a lot cheaper because the new one has this feature and that feature. Versus with film cameras, these are old pieces of history. Essentially, they're non-existent, they're kind of obsolete, but we're still in love with them. So when you go to resell these cameras, they tend to really keep the value, and sometimes they even sell for more. But when it comes to buying one in today's world, it is a little more expensive than it would have been 3 years ago. If you're looking to buy a really nice quality camera like a Pentax K1000 or a Minolta, for example, you're looking to pay anywhere from $150 to around $250 for a decently cared one, meaning the light meter works, there's no weird things like fungus in the lens that you're buying, or hazing that's happening, or complete damage to the body. So that's something that you would strongly keep in mind. Unfortunately, these are becoming a little bit more difficult to find at thrift stores. Although you could get lucky sometimes, it's very, very unlikely that you'll be able to find a nice camera. Although I did stumble on TikTok not so long ago of somebody that found like a Contax T2 for like $4.99. We can only dream, right? Imagine finding like a Leica for $10. That would be crazy. But they're still out there, just a little bit more tricky to find. I did find a Pentax K1000 last year at a thrift shop listed at around $80. So I feel like the person that was like running this thrift shop kind of knows, right? And also that runs us into the next problem, which of course are some of the people that are resellers and thrifters that like to sell this stuff for more expensive on their sites, like on Macari, or I think it's like Depop or whatever it's called. So yeah, I mean, it's out there, but for the most of us, a lot of us are going to go on Etsy or eBay to try to find these cameras, and they're still relatively priced at a good point, which is a good thing, because when you want to go to resell your cameras later, they're probably going to have that same value as long as film doesn't like die all of a sudden, right? Because then it's going to be like not good. But to give you an idea, for another example, is my my Pentax 6.7, which is like one of my favorite cameras that unfortunately I don't shoot too much of because I'm in San Francisco and the crime here is just at just really staggering rates. I definitely feel like I would get robbed with that camera out. I paid $600 for that camera last year, or I'm sorry, in 2020. And I literally checked more recently on eBay, and this camera that I have now is worth around like $1,500 because of all the accessories that I had when I got the initial bundle. My Pentax 6.7 has the wooden handle, the 105 Takumar lens, the hood. It also has like the neck, the nice little neck thing that goes on to the camera itself, so you can carry it around, which I don't recommend. It even came with like the adjusting ring and everything. Just with that camera, I paid like $600 for it, which is pretty crazy. Now it's worth like $1,500, which is pretty insane. But for the most part, it's still worth it. There is no shortage of film cameras, so I would strongly encourage you to look on eBay, try to find a good price. Unfortunately, when I did check today, a lot of the cameras are on bid, right? People are bidding for them all crazy, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna probably hit like $150 to $250. So it's not really worth getting into that. So make sure that you just kind of look through the pages, because you might get lucky. When it comes down to lenses are a bit of a challenge to find as well, especially if you're going to be getting like a Canon AE1. The FD lenses tend to be picked up a lot by like filmmakers and cinematographers. The FD lenses are just really popular with the way that it softens some images. I'm guilty of that. When I find good FD lenses, I buy them because I do from time to time make cinematography or make small little films and stuff. So if you're interested in that, you can check out my TikTok in the link below. I have made some small snippets of things that I've done in the past with some of these older lenses, which look really cool. But yeah, those lenses are still around. They're not too expensive either. You can find a good, a good Canon FD lens for like, $150 to $200. That's only for Canon. There's a ton, of other lenses. I think Pentax has a bunch of them, and Ulta has a bunch of them. So that's actually still relatively good. So what about the last process, right? The last process in the entire film part is the lab and the scan. So what is that like? Now, when it comes down to the last part, which is the lab and the processing and the scanning, that's stayed relatively good. And it's really hard to gauge this because it's really going to depend on where you're living in the United States or in the world, because some cities that are larger, like LA, New York, San Francisco, have independent labs where film is processed, and it tends to be pretty big because there's a large population. If you're living somewhere where a lab isn't, existing in your area, you may have to, mail your film out, which can get expensive, and then getting the scans and waiting, it could take a while. Generally here in San Francisco, you can get your rolls developed from $8 to $9. That's just the development, meaning you get a negative. If you want your pictures scanned, you're going to have to pay a premium, and that's going to be anywhere from an additional $10 up to $15 for the more premium, like larger scans, if you want to be able to like blow up your work, and if you want more clarity and more detail, right? You're gonna have to pay more for that. Fortunately, right? Yes, that's the world we live in, but it's still relatively affordable. If you're looking at the minimum, right? If you're looking at just your general film, if you want just a very basic run and gun, post on social media, you're looking at around $18 a roll. If you're looking for more advanced or more larger files, scans for like, blowing up your work, then you are going to be looking at roughly maybe $24 to, $25 a roll, which can get pretty expensive. And then if you're shooting black and white, if you want things done like pulling or pushing your film, that also costs sometimes an extra $2 per stop, things like that. So yeah, that can get expensive too. And then slide film is the most expensive to develop. Some labs are charging like $15 a roll for development, and that doesn't even include the scan. So you could be looking anywhere from $30 a roll, which brings your total to around $50 per roll that you shoot of slide film, which is insane. That's why I don't shoot slide film. But for the most part, I think that if you're just coming into film, I think that just the general scans are going to work fine. You're probably going to post them on social media. You're probably not going to be blowing up your work really crazy, and you're probably not going to be getting like massive 24 by 36 prints anytime soon. So it's still going to be affordable. Unfortunately, if you're going to be shooting color film, you are going to have to pay that premium, because color film is hard to find, and then you got to pay for the development and then the scans, and oh my god, and it just gets a little crazy. But if you're already shooting film and you're already wanting to process it at home, C41 chemicals are starting to kind of come back into the world. C41 is the keyword for color film. And the processing is C41, and those chemicals are trickling back in. I've seen them a lot more at the film stores I've been to here in the Bay Area and online, which is great. These are also semi-expensive and kind of a little faulty. They're around $30. And they will save you in the long run, because I think one set of chemicals can get you around 20 rolls of film. I've extended it to like 20 rolls of film, which is really nice, but you have to make sure you use them really quickly. Either you hit the 20 rolls of film, or 3 months, and then you have to essentially dump them away in a safe manner by taking them to the dump, or taking them to your local, not the dump, the other place, the toxic drop off, whatever, because those chemicals are highly toxic, which is why I stopped developing color film. Although I'm going to be making videos in the future on what it takes to develop your own film at home. I'm going to go over black and white and color. That's going to be for something else, to start saving you some cash. But as of now, when you first start, you're probably not going to do any of that. You're probably going to send it to a lab, and then later on, once you find out, oh my god, I love film, you're going to probably buy a scanner, or maybe use your digital camera like I do to scan, which is one of the most foolproof ways and more affordable ways, because a lot of us that are going into film are probably already digital photographers anyways, and probably have a nice camera with a 100mm lens or an 85mm lens that we can use to scan the film. So that leaves us to the last part of this video. After hearing everything, and even after me doing research on film, I've questioned myself, is it even worth shooting film in the year 2022? I really thought about it, and honestly, I think it's still worth shooting film in the year 2022. Unfortunately, I can't go as crazy as I once did, buying a bunch of film all the time because of the prices, but I think it's still a relatively good market to be in. It's not too expensive, but you will have to come in with an open mind, especially if you have this mindset of, I'm going to start shooting color. You may not be able to get that far yet. You may have to start off with black and white, which may lead you to some pretty awesome discoveries. Film cameras are still relatively affordable. They're not as expensive as a DSLR, which is great. And these are going to retain the overall value over time, which is even a bigger plus because you can easily sell your stuff later on as long as film doesn't just like fall off the face of the earth. So in my opinion, I think film is still worth it. But again, I think if you're somebody that is, you know, maybe struggling or maybe, I don't know, kind of at this point not really sure, I would strongly just kind of look over some things. I mean, when I first started shooting film, I didn't have a lot of cash. I was buying like maybe 2 rolls a month, which was fine. It works. I made it work. But now I've transitioned over to black and white, and I'm buying like 6 to 7 rolls at a time, and then just kind of buying that every few months, which works out fine. And yeah, so if you are going to get into film, I wish you the best of luck. If you're going to be shooting color, if you're coming into the world of black and white, welcome. The world is abundant, it's a lot greener, and things are just a little better on this side for the most part until the world of color film starts to get a little more affordable and essentially starts to go stop through all this craziness of shortages. So thank you so much for listening to my channel and today's episode. If you liked this channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button below and the like button as well, and write a comment below as to how do you feel about film. Do you shoot film? Are you interested in shooting film? And after listening to this, would you want to jump into film? So thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk to everyone later. See ya.